The sharp sound of a slap shattered the hush inside the first-class cabin, leaving everyone stunned. Phones dropped. Mouths hung open. A senior flight attendant, Alina Jansen, stood trembling with fury, her hand still raised. In front of her stood Danielle Harris, a poised black woman in her mid-30s, a red mark blooming across her cheek. But Danielle didn't retaliate. She didn't cry or raise her voice. She stared at Alina with calm, unblinking eyes because Danielle wasn't just another passenger. She was one of the top civil rights attorneys in the country and a special advisor to the Federal Aviation Administration. 10 minutes later, a quiet phone call changed everything, ending a career, freezing licenses, and igniting a national firestorm. Danielle Harris had boarded the flight from Atlanta to Washington, D.C., dressed in a charcoal gray suit, heading to speak at a federal summit on racial equity in transportation. She had spent her life fighting injustice in courtrooms and boardrooms. As she walked to her first-class seat, she noticed a middle-aged white man sitting in it. Politely, she showed him her boarding pass. He smirked and told her to take another. Before she could respond, Alina Jansen swooped in, her voice sharp, her expression dismissive. "Miss, maybe you're confused. Coach is that way." Danielle calmly repeated her seat number, but Alina rolled her eyes and accused her of causing a disturbance. "You people are always looking for trouble," she whispered, loud enough to be heard. Passengers shifted uncomfortably. When Danielle refused to move, Alina's frustration boiled over. In a shocking outburst, she slapped Danielle across the face, leaving a mark, and a plane entire of witnesses in disbelief. "Wait a second." In the comments, tell us where you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories like this. The cabin erupted in gasps. Several passengers began recording with their phones. Alina's face immediately drained of color as she realized that her eyes and cameras were now turned on her. But Danielle didn't shout. She reached into her briefcase, pulled out her phone, and calmly made a call. "This is Danielle Harris," she said. "We have a problem." On the other end of the line was her direct contact at the Department of Transportation's Civil Rights Division. The crew grew tense. The captain was informed. Takeoff was delayed. Meanwhile, the video footage spread fast through airdrop and online. The story began trending before the wheels even left the runway. Alina tried to apologize, but the damage was done. The man in Danielle's seat was quietly escorted away. Airline staff whispered among themselves, but Danielle remained composed. She knew she had just become the face of something bigger, and unlike her attacker, she didn't need to raise her voice because her power was institutional. When the plane landed in D.C., the airline's executive board had already seen the footage. News outlets picked up the story mid-flight. A black federal advisor and lawyer was struck by a flight attendant in front of witnesses. It was a nightmare scenario for the airline. At the gate, uniformed security waited, not for Danielle, but for Alina Jansen. She was escorted off the plane, eyes wide with disbelief. "This is all a misunderstanding," she insisted, but her protests fell on deaf ears. Danielle exited the aircraft with dignity. A government official with updates awaited her. The Federal Aviation Administration had opened an emergency investigation. The airline's license to operate that route was suspended pending an entire civil rights compliance review. And Alina? She was terminated before she could even collect her final paycheck. The press tried to swarm Danielle, but she offered no dramatic statements, just a brief nod of acknowledgement. Her silence spoke louder than outrage. The next day, Danielle appeared at the national summit she'd been headed to, where she opened with a single sentence. "Yesterday, I was reminded why I do this work." Her keynote address was broadcast live. and the viral footage was now part of a growing call for reform. The airline issued a public apology and committed to implementing mandatory anti-bias training across all crew members. Alina Jansen became the symbol of everything wrong in the industry. Danielle, the face of justice, served with grace and strength. Her story sparked change not through vengeance, but through the calm exercise of power earned through years of fighting for it. Danielle never wanted to be a headline. She wanted change, and that's exactly what she got. In the weeks that followed, multiple airlines reviewed their diversity training. Policies were rewritten. Whistleblowers stepped forward. And passengers across the country began to see what happens when power meets prejudice and doesn't blink. Danielle reminded the world that justice doesn't always shout. Sometimes it sits down quietly, makes one call, and shakes the system from the inside out. If you enjoyed this story and thought it was provoking, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful narratives. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Take care.